Every day, we are consumed by the fast-paced world that we live in, blinded by a tech-saturated, overwhelming, self-absorbed culture. We lose touch with our spiritual discipline and forget the significance of true fellowship with Christ. But what if there was a place full of love? A place to fellowship? A place to receive His blessing and guidance. A place to take a break from reality, hear His word, and feast on all He has for us. His table is open. Will you pull up your seat? Table Talk.
Who's ready to pull up their seat today? Oh, come on, 11 a.m. You can do way better than that. Said, who's ready to pull up their seat today to the table? Who's just been feeling like God has been speaking to you and revealing Himself in a brand new way over these first 8 weeks, and you know that God is saving the best for last? If you're hungry and you are ready this morning to feast at His table, do me a favor and just like 10 seconds and give God crazy praise. Let Him know I'm here. And I'm ready. I'm here and I'm ready. We're sitting here today and we're getting ready to wind down our series, Table Talk. It's been 8 weeks so far. We have this week, and next week is our finale of this amazing series. And it is no coincidence that we are ending our Table Talk series and then going downstairs and sitting around tables and fellowshipping and celebrating. Come on. And so like Alex said during announcements, not only plan on staying after our 11 a.m. experience next Sunday, but plan on bringing something, plan on contributing something. If you can't contribute something, still come and hang out and spend time together. Something happens when we break bread together, when we hang out together, when we chill together, when we spend time together. The last couple of years have been a real challenge because of the separations and the pandemics and the masks and the lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. This is our chance to get back together as a family and have an Eastgate family dinner together. Come on. Reconnect with each other, reconnect with God, and so I'm super excited about that. We are in week 9. Last week, we sat down at the very last meal with Jesus, as He had an opportunity to eat and pour into His disciples one last time before He was betrayed, before He suffered, before He died, and before He rose again. This week, we find Jesus and our table on the other side. On the other side of resurrection. On the other side of victory. On the other side of the cross. Somebody shout, on the other side. We are transitioning this morning to the other side of victory. We're transitioning this morning to the other side of a new perspective and a new revelation of who Jesus is and what Jesus has done. I don't know about you, but I've seen Jesus in a whole new way over these 8 weeks, and I am falling in love with Him all over again. But there is still more. Somebody shout, there's still more. There's still more of Him that we can have. Amen. So this week, on the other side of resurrection, Jesus is ready to serve up some comfort food. Anybody in here like them some comfort food? Yeah, not gluten-free. Definitely. Gluten-free is not comfort food. I'm sorry. Gluten-free is cardboard that you have to eat so you feel better about yourself. We're talking about like grilled cheese or mac and cheese and what you say, Maria? Collard greens. Come on. Pizza. Comfort food, all American. Lasagna, yeah, all the good stuff. Jesus serves up some comfort food, and we all have our different definition of what comfort food is, but the dictionary actually defines comfort food as well, and this is what it tells us that comfort food is. It's food that provides consolation or a feeling of well-being, especially in times of stress, sadness, and worry. Food that provides consolation or a feeling of well-being, of comfort in times of stress and sadness and worry and complete, humble, honest, open, transparent moment. It was comfort food that got the Yanicelli house through the pandemic. Some of the spiritual people, they had the song The Blessing, right? The Blessing got so many people through the pandemic. There was a New York blessing. There was a London blessing. There was an Africa blessing. There was all these different blessings, and it got people through the lockdown and the pandemic. That wasn't the case in our house. We didn't use the blessing. We used a weekly delivery of ooey gooey, big thick cookies from my cookie dealer. If it wasn't for my cookie dealer, I would not be here right now. Comfort food got us through the lockdown. Thank Jesus for my cookie dealer. Literally. But at its core, the intent of comfort food is to help us feel at home, help us feel at ease, help us feel at peace in dark days, filled with difficulty, filled with disappointment. Where we pick up in our story, the disciples are discouraged, they're defeated, they're confused. They feel like everything that they believed in was a lie. They feel like the one that they had put their trust in and gotten their hopes up for had disappointed and failed. And so now, what do they do next? What is the next step? What is the way forward from here when everything that we put all our eggs in one basket, right? And it didn't go the way we thought it would go. It didn't go the way we thought it should have gone. Here's this moment. We pick up our story in Luke chapter 24, beginning in verse 13. It says, later that same day, 2 of Jesus' disciples were walking from Jerusalem to Emmaus, a journey of about 7 miles. And they were in the midst of a discussion about all the events of the last few days. And then Jesus shows up. And he walked up and accompanied them on their journey. Somebody say, on their journey. But they were unaware that it was actually Jesus walking alongside them, for God prevented them from recognizing him. Jesus said to them, you seem to be in a deep discussion about something. What are you talking about? So sad and gloomy. And they stopped. And the one named Cleopas answered and he said, haven't you heard? Are you the only one in Jerusalem unaware of the things that have happened the last few days? Now, I love the Bible so much, and if we don't pay attention, we'll miss things like this, because Cleo, he is one of Jesus' disciples, but he doesn't realize that he's actually walking with Jesus, and Jesus is asking them what happened, and he's like, haven't you heard? Like, he gives him an attitude. And he proceeds to tell Jesus about everything that just happened to Jesus. Hello. I know that we're getting some hum. It's not from the mains, it's from the monitors. It has to be adjusted from the mix. So just so that I know they're trying to figure it out back there. It has to be adjusted from back here, not from the sound desk. Yeah. How many appreciate our Eastgate Tech team and our... Yeah, awesome. But Cleo is here telling Jesus, like with an attitude, like, everything that just happened to Jesus, and he goes on to explain to the one who created life the way that life should have happened. And he begins to treat God like a guest. Now, I don't know about you, but I can relate to Cleo. I can relate to what this guy was going through, because there are often times that I have conversations with God and I start to tell God the way that he should be being God. Right? Like we start to tell God the way that he ought to be God. Like, hey, you're like, I don't know if you're paying attention. I don't know, like we have the same attitude. Like, I don't know if you know what's happening here, but like this is not good, and you're not really engaged, and you're not helping me out, and you're not doing your job. So like maybe if you did it this way, it would be better. And he proceeds to tell Jesus everything that should have happened. And tell him the way that it should have been. Here's Jesus' response in verse 26. Wasn't it necessary? Wow. Wasn't it necessary? I feel like that's something that we need to speak over our own life. It was necessary. Wasn't it necessary for the Messiah to experience all these sufferings and all these things, and afterwards to enter into his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he carefully unveiled to them the revelation of himself throughout all of the scriptures. And as they approached the village, Jesus walked on ahead, telling them that he was going to a distant place, but they urged him to remain there with them and pleaded, "Stay with us, it will be dark soon." So Jesus went with them into the village. And joining them where? Oh, well, let's try this one more time. Joining them where? He took bread and blessed it and broke it. They had communion like we did last week. And he gave it to them, and all at once their eyes were opened. And they realized that it was Jesus. Then suddenly in a flash he vanished before their eyes. Now watch this. Stunned, they looked at each other and said, "Why didn't we recognize him?" Write that question down, because that's a question I want us to answer before we leave this morning. Why didn't we recognize him when we were walking on the road? Why didn't we recognize him when he was speaking to us? Why didn't we recognize him when he took that journey with us? Why didn't we recognize him when we sat at the table? Why didn't we see him working? Why didn't we see him moving? Why did we miss what he was doing? Why didn't we recognize him? Didn't our hearts burn with flames of holy passion while he walked beside us? For he unveiled for us such profound revelation from the scriptures. See, when I read this story, it kind of bothers me. Because everything about this story, when we begin to examine it further, everything about this story is backwards. Nothing about what Jesus does after his resurrection makes any sense until it makes sense. So Jesus shows up on a road to Emmaus. Now, if you don't know what Emmaus is, Emmaus was a city, and it was a place that scholars today don't even know where it's located, because it wasn't important enough for history to remember. So Jesus comes out of the grave and starts walking towards some place that is so unimportant that nobody knows where it is. And while he's walking toward Emmaus, he's walking away from Jerusalem, the place that the Holy Spirit was about to fall. So watch this. The first thing that Jesus does after the resurrection is leave the place of promise and begin to walk toward a place that nobody cares enough to remember. And he starts talking to people that are absolutely insignificant. Up until this moment, we have no idea what their names are. We find out as we're reading that the guy's name is Cleo, and so Cleo is there, and most people and scholars believe that he was walking with his wife. So there are Cleo and his wife. We've never heard of them before. We don't hear about them after. He's walking away from the promise toward a place that is unimportant with insignificant people. And not only are they insignificant, they're sad and miserable and defeated. Like, think about this. Jesus just conquered sin, death, and the grave. It seems like it's the perfect time to have a party and get around some people that'll celebrate you. Right? Like, listen, I understand in life wins don't come along that often, so when you get a win, you better enjoy it. Like, there are people that I know that I'm connected to that when I get excited about something, I'm not going around them because they're Debbie Downer. They're going to bring me down to earth, and I want to just enjoy, even if it's for like 5 minutes, a win. But here's Jesus running toward these people that are downcast and defeated. Like, why not go to Peter? Or John or Matthew or Thomas or one of the other disciples that we actually know about? If it was me, I would have had a party. I would have had a resurrection party. Like, I feel like to a certain extent, they said, go tell my disciples and give Peter an invitation too. We're having a resurrection party. Even though he denied me, I'll let him come to my party. Like, it would be lit, right? Like, Jesus would have this banging music, and they'd be having fun, and they'd be taking selfies, and they'd start a meme movement, #risen. He knows he only has 40 days before he goes home. He only has 40 days to show himself as evidence of resurrection. You would think he would take that time on the other side of the cross to enjoy the victory. But before he does anything else, he does what he's good at. He confounds our expectations. He goes to the least likely place with the least likely people. Have you figured this out yet? You can't figure Jesus out. Hello. Like, he doesn't do what you think he should do. He doesn't use the people that you think he should use. He doesn't go to the places you think he should go. So what does Jesus do after his resurrection? He takes a walk. Like, what's the matter with you, Jesus? Nobody likes to walk. Like, why would you walk somewhere? Like, I know people that, like, I just want to go for a walk, and, like, I'll leave the car, I'll take a walk. Like, why would you walk? You can go there and get there in 2 minutes in a car. It'll take you 20 minutes to walk, and then you'll be tired and in pain. Like, come on, like use your head a little bit. If you are somebody that likes to walk, or especially somebody that likes to run, we're opening up the altar after church, and we're going to pray for you, and we're going to deliver you from whatever spirit that is, because that's not of God. Or maybe Jesus took a walk. And I think there's a reason that he took a walk. And I think the first reason is this, is to show us that discipleship is not about the destination. Like, we're so obsessed with arriving. We are so obsessed with leveling up. Right? We get a word and we just want to get there. Like, let's make it happen. Let's do this thing. But what if Christianity is about progress and a process? While we've been focusing on arriving, he's interested in the details. When we're obsessing about the destination, God is waiting for us in the details. What if discipleship isn't about the destination? What if discipleship was about the journey? I want to propose this thought to you that true discipleship doesn't happen in a microwave. It doesn't matter how great the tools you have. It doesn't matter how good the training is. It doesn't matter what techniques you use. Discipleship takes time. There's no quick fix. Hello. There's no quick fix. You know, God can meet us in a moment and God can do something in a moment, but his moments are meant to be movements. They're not supposed to stop at an altar. I believe that God can deliver you in a moment at the altar, but then it takes discipline and discipleship to stay free. It takes discipline and discipleship to keep moving forward in the plan of God in your life. We want to stop at deliverance, but he wants to take us on the journey of discipleship. Discipleship is a long process. It's messy and it's hard. That's why so many of us want to bypass it. We want to skip it. But he wants to take us on this journey, and we learn that the walk that he took with these men this couple was 7 miles. Somebody say 7 miles. The number 7 represents perfection, and what it means for you and I is that each and every one of us have a journey of 7 miles. It is the perfect journey that has been planned and provided for you so that you can reach your fullest potential in him. It's a 7-mile journey, and we all have to walk 7 miles. Some of us may start on mile 3 and others of us may start on mile 1. Usually we're not in the same place in our journey, but we all have a 7-mile journey. And I want to encourage somebody in this morning. It is impossible, somebody say impossible, to walk 7 miles in 1 step. It is impossible to walk 7 miles in 1 step, but how many have tried? All my limbs are up. Because I keep trying. Not only do I try, I keep trying. I keep trying because I see where I want to be, and I see where God has called me to be, and I'm in a rush to get there, and I want to just be the one. But here's the amazing thing. He's not in a rush. He is taking us on this journey, page upon page, precept upon precept, from glory to glory, day by day. Watch this, step by step, by step, by step. And in every step, God is speaking. And if we're in a rush to get to the destination, we're going to start taking steps too quickly. And instead of hearing what God said here and embracing it and owning it and letting him do a work in this step, we'll be over here ill-equipped to move forward and wondering why we're not ready and we don't have the strength to keep moving forward. It's because we didn't receive the strength from the step that we didn't hear back here. So watch this. Not only is God speaking in every step, but in our obedience there is renewed strength in every step. But if I don't hear what he's speaking, I forfeit the strength that he's providing, and before I know it, I'm growing weary in my journey. And I'm trying to get ahead of myself and be something that he's not expecting me to be just yet. There's a way to take this journey efficiently. And if you ask professional runners and you say, well, what's the most efficient way to run a race? They'll tell you, here's what you don't do. The first thing you don't do is look behind. It doesn't matter how far out in front you are. You don't ever look behind. And the reason is this: the moment that you look behind, it automatically changes your pace. It is impossible to run at the optimal speed while looking behind. So the journey's not about what's behind us. The second thing they say, don't look beside you. If you're running and you start looking where the other people are running next to you, you lose focus of where you're supposed to be going. See, we have a God that is not just the God of the destination, he's the God of a detour. And there are sometimes people around us take detours, and there's sometimes God calls us to take a detour. And if we're so focused on what everybody else is doing or not doing, we may miss our turn. You guys with me? This is some good stuff. Like, I feel like it's good. Are you enjoying it so far? So in order to run optimally on this journey, we can't look behind us, we can't look beside us, but they also say to be careful, don't look too far before you. The way to be the most successful is to do this. Keep sight of what's ahead of you, but focus on the next step. Focus on the next step. I feel like what God was trying to show us when he was walking with this couple on the road to Emmaus is focus on the next step. Forget about the destination. Forget about where you'll ultimately be. I'll get you there. I'll get you there. I'll get you to the end. I'll get you to the end. You can't take 7 miles in one step, but if you take 15,000 steps good and well and rightly, I'll get you to the destination that you need to be. Just focus on hearing what I'm speaking in the next step so that you can get the strength. So don't rush it. Don't rush it. Somebody say, don't rush it. Turn to somebody else and say, don't rush it. Don't rush it and don't judge it. I feel like somebody needs to hear this. Don't judge the journey before it's over. Don't judge the journey before it's over. Don't get discouraged on mile 2, because there's still 5 more miles ahead of you. Don't judge the journey before it's finished. Don't judge the journey before God is done with your life. Come on. I've come to let somebody know God's not done with you yet. Don't be discouraged. Don't be defeated. Don't be in despair. God's not done with you yet. Don't judge your journey. Everything that you went through was for a reason. Everything that you went through had a purpose, and it's leading you to the promise. Don't judge the journey. Don't judge the journey at the 2nd mile, because our present is a place only our future can define. Let that sink in for a moment. Our present is a place that only our future can define. So don't judge where you're at yet. Yet. You know how many times in the Bible it says, here's a situation, but God. Right? Here's what I went through. Here's the hell that I've experienced on my journey, the disappointment, the frustration, the failure, the heartache. Here's everything I experienced, but God. Don't judge your journey before but God shows up. Oh, come on, somebody's going to hear that today. Somebody's going to hear that this morning. He's not done with you yet. But God. So lace up your shoes. Stretch out your hamstring. Because we're on a journey. We're on a journey. You're on a journey. Turn to somebody and say, you're on a journey. I think what happens for so many of us, and I know it happens for me, is that I find it easy to lose joy on the journey. And for me, it happens when, watch, what I experience is different than what I expected.
Wow, so good.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Come on, guys. That's good. Welcome to Eastgate Church. We're loud, we're rude, we're messy, we make a lot of noise, we have a lot of problems, but we have fun. So have some fun this morning, right? Don't be afraid to make some noise. Don't be afraid to shout. Don't be afraid. You can throw something at me. I'll probably catch it because I'm good. But you can try. We lose joy on the journey when our experience is different than our expectation. That's where these disciples, where they had an expectation, they had an idea of who Jesus was and what he was going to do. No way they thought that Jesus would be killed and put in the grave. He was the Messiah. He was the one that had come to rescue Israel. And now he was dead. What are we going to do? This is all wrong. They were disappointed and discouraged, and they were downcast, walking. They weren't walking with a jump in their step and their shoulders back. They were walking that road with their countenance down, looking at the ground. It's maybe one of the reasons they couldn't see Jesus is because they didn't look up. See, nowhere, anywhere, ever does God promise to meet our expectation. In other words, he is not bound to our way or our when of how life should happen. He never promises to meet our expectations, but here's what he does promise. I will do exceedingly, abundantly, beyond all you can ask or think. So he may not do it your way. He may not do it the way you want to do it, when you want to do it, how you want to do it, but when he does it, it's going to be better than anything you could ever imagine. If he promised to meet our expectation, he would never be able to exceed it. But he's a God that exceeds. But what happens? How do we respond when our experience is different than our expectation? Here's what they said in Luke 24:21. Cleo said, we had hoped. We had hoped. We had hoped. We had hope. We had hope. We had hope that he was the one. Can you feel the disappointment in his voice? We had hope that he was the one that the prophet spoke about. We had hope that he was the one that we've been waiting for. We had hope that he was the one. We had hope that it would be over by now. We had hope that they were going to make it. We had hope that the relationship would work. We had hope that the medicine would have fixed it. We had hope that. We had hope, and what had happened is we had hope, and then our experience didn't meet our expectation, and I didn't realize how joy was connected to hope. And when I stopped hoping, I stopped having joy in the journey. So many of us are struggling this morning because you've lost the joy in the journey because your expectation was different than your experience. Joy is defined as the emotion inspired by the expectation of good. And hope is defined as the expectation of good. So if we actually understand what it's saying is that joy is the emotion that is inspired by hope. So you cannot have joy without hope. But we try to find happiness in people and places and things, and we really think that a new job can bring joy. And we really believe that a new boo is going to make us happy. I said boo, boo, boo. Like we try to find joy in things that don't satisfy. Why? Because we don't understand that it's not those things that bring joy, it's hope. And what I believe as we come to a conclusion of 2021 and we get ready to start the year 2022, that what our nation and what this people need more than anything else is hope. That's a good time to agree. We need hope. We need hope not in a political system. We need hope not in an economy. We don't need hope in a president, because no matter how good or bad they are, 4 or 8 years later, somebody's going to come in and change everything they did anyway. There's no lasting hope in politicians. We need hope that never disappoints and hope that never fails. We need that kind of hope that Isaiah would write and say, they that hope in the Lord shall. Renew their strength. That's the kind of hope we need, the kind of hope that renews strength. The kind of hope that renews strength, that causes you to run and not grow weary, that causes you to walk and not faint. That's the kind of hope we need so that we can walk this journey out and finish the race. Like Paul said, I've run the race, I've finished it, I've completed the course. That's what I want to say at the end of my life, that I've run the race. I've finished my course, I got to the end, I made it to the 7th mile. But we need hope, and it's what the world has less now than ever before. I came across these numbers and it just blew my mind. 12 million American adults this past year. 12 million seriously thought and contemplated about ending their life. In all of our excess and everything that we have, 12 million Americans were a thought away from saying, I'm done. 3.5 million actually planned the attempt and figured out how they were going to do it. 1.4 million felt that their life was so hopeless that the only option and the only way out was to kill themselves. 1.4 million people this past year experienced hopelessness to the point of death. I had hoped my life would be different. I had hoped that my parents would have been better to me. I would have hoped that they would have changed. I would have hoped that it would be over by now. I would have hoped, but I feel hopeless. And when you feel hopeless, you feel helpless. But I feel like I'm on assignment today. For anybody that walked in feeling helpless, to let you know that you may feel helpless, but you don't have to leave feeling hopeless. Because there is hope in the dark. There is hope in the dark. And his name is Jesus. He's the glory and the lifter up of our head. He's the glory and the lifter. So when we're walking around discouraged and defeated and downcast, he shows up and he lifts up our head again and says, it's time to hope again. It's time to have joy again. It's time to live again. Your story's not over. The journey isn't over yet. Today is the day that hope is being restored. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean God's not going to do it. Get your hopes up. Do me a favor, high five somebody and say, get your hopes up. Get your hopes up. It's not just something that we have written on our carpet as you're walking into the sanctuary, because it's not just something that we want you to do when you walk into the church on a Sunday, is get your hopes up while you're here. No. It's a lifestyle. It's a theme. It is the message of my life. No matter what I'm facing, no matter what I'm going through, I have the honor and the privilege to get my hopes up, because my hope is beyond my circumstances. My hope is beyond my situation. My hope is beyond this world. My hope is in Jesus. And so no matter what I face, I can get my hopes up. Somebody shout amen if you're ready to get your hopes up today. They were talking about what was. We had hoped that he was. They were talking to Jesus about Jesus in the past tense. We had hoped that he was the Messiah. We had hoped that he was. They were talking to the one who was and is to come. Like he was a thing of the past. They didn't realize that hope was right in front of them. And here's where I want to end this morning. It is our reason for hope. It's because his presence is present. Come on, just say this with me. Say, his presence is present. His presence is present. Even if I don't feel it, even if I don't see him, even if I don't hear him, even if I don't understand it, his presence is present. His presence is present in your darkness. His presence is present in your despair. His presence is present in your disappointment. His presence is present in your hopelessness. He is here. He is not in the tomb. He's on the road. He's not in religion. He's in relationship. I've come to let somebody know this morning that he's not far off on a throne in heaven somewhere, but he's here with you. His presence is present. See, because we're not on a journey to God. We're on a journey with God. I'm not on a journey to find God. I'm on a journey with God. But maybe we miss him because we're looking for him in the dream and the destination and don't realize that he's there in the difficulty, the disappointment, and the darkness. You know that God's not afraid of the dark? You know, he's not afraid of the dark. And yeah. But here's what I tell my daughter. You ready for this one? You don't have to be afraid of the dark. The dark should be afraid of you. Jesus is not hiding in a closet somewhere on Halloween because he's afraid of darkness. He's not just the Lord of the light, but he's Lord of the dark as well. In fact, the Bible says that the light is dark to him and the dark is light to him. It doesn't matter. He's on the throne in the lightness and he's on the throne in the darkness. He's the king of the mountain and he's the king of the valley. There is nothing that frustrates him. There is nothing that isn't under his feet. He is king of all, Lord of all. Amen. Hallelujah. The creator, the beginning, the Alpha, the Omega, the King of kings, the Lord of lords. He is everything. He's not afraid of the dark. He's not afraid to get his hands dirty. He's not just waiting for us at the destination and say, when are they going to show up? He's with us in the journey when we fall to pick us up again. He's with us in the journey when we feel like quitting to say, you're going to make it, keep going. Keep fighting, I'm not done with you yet. Just wait, just hold on a little bit longer. Just keep going a little bit longer. Hope in me, trust in me. I won't let you down. Just keep going, keep fighting the good fight. Because he's with you when you're right, and he's with you when you're wrong. He's with you when you're stuck, and he's with you when you're being free. He's with you when you're crawling, and he's with you when you're running. He's with you when you're strong, and he's with you when you're weak. He's with you in the praise, but he's also with you in the pain. We have that verse that we know that he inhabits the praises of his people, so we think it's when we praise that he shows up, but what if he's been there all along? And the same God who manifests itself in the praise is the same God that's with you, carrying you through the pain. What if it's there in the pain and he's there in the praise? What if he walks with us and he talks with us and he says he'll never leave us or abandon us? What if he's with us always and forever? Some of those songs we used to sing that I grew up on they're so simple yet profound. There's a hymn called In the Garden. And just the words just is so profound and speak to our heart. And he walks with me. And he talks with me. But what is he? And he tells me that I am his own. Are we listening? He walks with you and he talks with you and he tells you that you are his own. You're mine. You belong to me. I'm hiding you under the shadow of my wings. I'll never let you fall beyond the reach of my grace and my love. I'm with you. I'm for you. Come on. I'm walking with you. I'm talking with you. And the joy it brings as we tarry there, no other will ever know. So he's here. He's with you wherever you are today, wherever you are in the journey, whatever situation and circumstances you find yourself in, he's with you. But this is my favorite part. The disciples sat down at the table and Jesus breaks the bread and blesses it and gives it to them. And their eyes are open and they say, Jesus is here. But what they understood in that moment was Jesus was not only there, but he had been with them all along. They were walking, and they were talking, and they were processing their pain, and they didn't realize that Jesus was walking with them. They said, I feel something and I don't know what it is. Now at the table, now that I came to the table, now that I'm here, I understand. You see, it's when they sat down that what happened when they walked made sense. It's when they came to the table that what was spoken about on the way, all of a sudden, I get it now. But I want to propose this thought to you right now. Could it be that at every moment in your life, through the trauma, the abuse, the pain, the disappointment, the difficulty, the darkness, could it be that he was there all along? You just didn't see him. You just didn't know it. But he was there with you, carrying you when you didn't have the strength to carry yourself. He was there with you when you were going to go astray and run. He left the 99. He said, no, I got you. Let's get back. Let's get back. Let's get back and keep walking this walk. Let's get back and keep running this race. I'm with you forever and always. Could it be that he's been there all along? We just didn't see it. They finally understood that it takes death to have a resurrection. They finally understood that it takes pain to have progress. They finally understood that it takes hurt to have healing. They finally understood that it takes a struggle to have a story that's worth telling. They finally understood that it takes a trial to have a testimony. And they finally understood that he was there throughout it all. So as you're standing to your feet today, it's the question that they asked themselves. They said, why? Why didn't we recognize him? Why didn't we recognize him? His presence is present. His presence has always been present, but why don't I recognize him? When I get in the car accident, why don't I recognize him? That he's there with me? Why? When I get a bad report from the doctor, why don't I recognize that he's there in the midst of it? Is it because it didn't happen the way that I thought it should happen? Is it because I set an expectation and I didn't realize that he doesn't meet my expectation? He exceeds it. Could it be because I'm looking behind? Could it be because I'm looking beside? Could it be that I'm looking too far ahead? Right now, he's speaking in every situation. And as he speaks, he's supplying strength for every step. But what has been blocking your vision? He's not just in the dream. He's in the difficulty. He's in the darkness. He's not just in the destination. He's in the detours. Why didn't we recognize him? As the team gets ready to prepare and pray this morning, I'm going to ask if there's anybody here this morning, first and foremost, that needs to know that his presence is present. His presence is present. You may feel alone. You may feel abandoned. But you're never alone. The creator of the universe who speaks and things come alive. The creator of all things who hung the sun, moon, and stars in the sky is with you. He is God with us. Emmanuel. And so today, if you need to see him present, if you need to know his presence and experience his presence and see his presence present in the step that you're in today, then we're going to ask you to calm down and our team is going to pray with you. But there's also another group that I want to invite down to the altar, and that group is this. as you look back on your life and see moments of failure and hurt and disappointment, and you wonder, God, where were you? And you need to not only see that his presence is present today, but you need to know that his presence was present in your past. That he's been there all along, and he's working all things together for good. Then God is drawing you and calling you to see him today like you've never seen him before. So I don't want to wait any longer. You just may say, Pastor, I just need a touch from God. I just want more of Jesus, and I already have. Then we're here to pray with you too. But if you want to know that Jesus is present in your or his presence is present, then right now make your way down to the altar. If you need to see Jesus in your history, if you want to see him in your past like you've never seen him before, that he's been there all along, even when you were running as far away from him as possible, he was there walking with you, giving you grace and mercy. Then quickly come this morning. Don't wait another moment as we begin to worship. Let's all lift our hands to heaven and just worship the King. Worship Jesus, because he's good and because he's faithful, and there's none like him in all the earth.
My